Hey folks, this is Johnny. Welcome to a yet another last minute home studio trainer live. Hopefully you guys are doing well, and as we go through here, there we go, as it washes out. I am Johnny Geib, and I want to welcome everybody. I think there's only one person here so far. So yeah, these are they usually start between 6 and 7. It depends on when I get off work usually. But today I didn't start until 7 because of the holidays. So I wasn't even sure if I was going to be able to do this tonight, but we'll see. So what we're going to focus on tonight, if we go back here, we're going to take a look at the Quantum HD-8, which I have running everything for me. Everything goes through it, all my mics, all my equipment. I've got two let's see, I always forget. I got two Digimax D8s hooked up for a total of 32 inputs, plus a couple more than that because I got a Spitif set. So hopefully you guys, hey, I just saw Dwayne come in, so let's go back here. Good evening, Dwayne. Hopefully you guys had a good Thanksgiving. And sorry I'm late again tonight. But like I said at the beginning, I wasn't even sure I was going to be able to do this tonight. So I'm looking forward to chatting with you guys about the Quantum HD-8 for those of you that are looking to maybe grab one of the PreSonus models here. It's very, very cool. Sean Aaron is here. Good to see you, Sean. Hey, and I got the claps there too. Thank you. I got the clap. Nice. Hopefully you guys, like I said, hopefully you guys had a good holiday. So let's see. Some of the things that have been going on, been doing a lot of Zoom sessions, doing a lot of training for people. A lot of people coming into the Patreon side, which is nice. So, if you are subscribed and helping out the channel through Patreon, all of your Zoom sessions and support is free after that, and we can hook up anytime. That we each have some time available. Very, very cool. Sheila's here. Good to see you, Sheila. Yeah, I still got the stupid cough. Believe it? Unbelievable. Sheila says, hey, folks. Dwayne says we did. Hope you did as well. Yes, I had a very good one. Very good one. It was small. It was just me, the kids, my wife, and my in-laws. That's it. That's it. I've only got one set of in-laws left. There you go. So it worked out really well. My mother-in-law is a tremendous cook. She cooked this huge turkey, and I ate way too much. More than I should have. I don't really get into all the other fixins and stuff, so all I had was turkey and stuff, and that was it. And boy, did I stuff. Unbelievable. Let's see. Sheila says, good to see you, Johnny. It's good to see you, too. Although I can't see you, but you can see me. So that's, there we go. That's balanced and fair. I might actually do some of these via a Zoom session and invite everybody in, and everybody can get on camera if you guys want, and we can all say hi that way too. All right, so what we're going to take a look at is we're going to take a look at the Quantum HD-8. Just Bob says, I have the Quantum HD-2. Excellent. And I'm pretty sure that the interface is the same as far as when you use it with universal control. Not 100% sure of that, so Bob will be able to, excuse me, Bob will be able to tell us how different it is from what you're going to see here on my screen. If you guys could, I'd really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe to my channel here on YouTube. If you're on Rumble, hit the follow button and follow me over there. If you want to support the channel, go to Patreon and become a member over there. Now, there is a free option if you just want to see some of the basic stuff I have over there. Pretty much a mirror image of what I have on YouTube. If you support me over there with just a couple bucks, you can actually see videos that I can't post on YouTube. I've got a Beatles video over there where I show songwriting and using a Beatles song as an example. I've got a whole mix session of the song Killer Queen by the band Queen, where I actually was able to get my hands on the individual tracks and remix the whole song. It's getting a lot of good response over there, so you can check that out as well. And here we are back. As you guys can see from the camera on the side, you guys can see I've got my console all set up. I actually think I can do it this way too, and shunk. There we go. This is my whole rig here. I've got the regular Atom, I've got the Atom SQ, and I got my fader port, which is probably, I use my fader port now these days more than I ever have. Is quite nice. I can take off the protective cover here. I'm going to be using it. And there you go. Very cool. Yeah, and up above the monitors and everything is set up. I just have 2 monitors and all of my fancy lights, and I'm using the Aris 44s for all of my speaker work. There you go. Just like that. And I did some interesting rewiring today. I actually ended up, I was having trouble with my Studio One sessions closing really slowly. I didn't really know what the deal was, but I didn't worry about it too much because they did eventually close. So I ended up, because I was kind of doing some rewiring at the front of the console here, and I ended up using a much shorter cable between my Mac Mini and my HD-8. Now, strangely enough, in working on a couple of mixes for clients today, all of the closing problems went away. So I can't guarantee this 100%, but I have a feeling it was because I'm now using, I was using a 7-foot USB cable for the HD-8 to there. Now I only need a 4-foot. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but it has made a difference so far, and we'll be able to see it too as we work in Studio One today while we use and go through the quantum settings. All right. So let's see. We got 9 people in here. Be the Crown just came in. Thank you. Hurricane is here. Good to see you. And yeah, that kind of rounds out our, our list. We have 8 people in here now. I'm opening up Studio One as we speak on the other screen. There we go. So as soon as that opens, we're going to get this demonstration going. There we go. All right, so I am using Studio One version 7. And one of the things that I noticed with the shorter cable from the HD-8 to my Mac Mini is a little bit on the opening and closing of songs. So, for instance, if I open up one of my larger song works, this is a song that I did using M-Voice for the lead vocal. I don't know if I ever played this for anybody. I'll play you a little bit of it so you guys can hear it. There we go. So this song is called Never Let You Go. M-Voice is still loading. I'll show you what that looks like. So these 3 tracks here are all M-Voice, and I am going to do a live stream on using M-Voice at some point. So if I have M-Voice, and it is still loading, there we go. So this is the vocal work for the song I'm working on. Just like this. And yeah, it's still loading. Just gotta wait for the voices to load. And let's go ahead and close that. And this is one of the backup vocals. Let's see if I can get this in the screen here. Here's one of the backup vocals. And then here is the second backup vocal. And it's loading up. M-Voice is one of those programs that you have to be logged in to the internet for it to do updates. There we go. So we're good there. All right, so let's see if we can get this here. actually hear an acoustic version.
And then I hear that voice again. I never run away. I see your face and everything's okay. I'll never ever let you go. I'll never ever ever let you go.
That turned out so good. Yeah, I know, it's a synthetic voice, but screw it, man. It sounds really good. I can't sing anymore. And maybe someday I can find a singer, a couple singers, to actually redo the vocals. But for the most part, I think it sounds pretty good. I think it does. So you guys tell me what you guys think in the comments. But what I love to be being able to do is I love being able to go back and do the edits and things on the vocals. Now, I understand that this has nothing to do with the HD-8, and I'm going to get to that here. I just kind of wanted to demo this song for you guys to check out, and you guys can tell me what you think. Let's go ahead and do a save on that. Seems that I got all the screens on the same, and I'm going to minimize Studio One. All right, so let's start. Let me actually get some of these icons out of the way here. Let's see. Let me move this. Let me get these guys out of the way. There we go. This back. Oh. All right. Perfect. Just Bob says sounds great. Hurricane. Yeah, actually, before I missed one of his messages, said the HD2. Wow, this is great. He says, hi, Johnny. Hi. Let's see. Dwayne actually says, I agree with the vocals. I enjoy listening to your songs. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take a look at the HD-8's interface using Universal Control. So this is the first thing. When you open Universal Control, any newer PreSonus hardware should show up in the listing. There are my two Atoms. There's my fader port. And then there's the HD-8. So for these guys here, when you click on them, nothing really comes up because they don't really have any other interfacing or any other controllability through Universal Control. But when it comes to the HD-8, you got a lot of stuff. So this is the mixer in the HD-8. And yes, it's very colorful. But you get to see everything that I have hooked up to this bad boy here. And let me see if I can get this shrunk a little bit so that, there we go. All right, so you can see here I have all of my faders and channels for all of my inputs, and I do have them all labeled. These are the DAW inputs that Studio One comes back in on. And then I have all of my drum mics. It's my acoustic drum kit is in the other room. And you can see I have all these inputs, and these are going into one of my Digimax D8 units. So then on here, these are all of my, or many of my rack mount gear, all my old school MIDI gear. Most of this stuff is over 20 years old. Here's the inputs for my my S4, my Alesis S4, my DM5 Alesis module, my EMU, my Proteus. And my sound canvas, for those of you who are familiar with the Roland sound canvas. All right, I'm not using the Spitifins, but usually I use this for one of my guitar pedals, which has a Spitif out, but I don't have that hooked up right now. And then on the remainder of all of the channels that are on my HD-8, I've got my, these are patch inputs, so my PC audio actually plugs into here, or anything else, my reel-to-reel or my cassette decks. Then I got my TD3, my electronic drum kit, left and right outputs, and then my piano module. So you can see I've got everything pretty well organized here to where I can just go after anything. And I can turn it up, assign it to a track in Studio One, and it just works. Now, conversely, in Studio One, One of the things that you're going to need to do when you set up your template for recording is you are going to need to go to the song setup on one of your songs, and you're going to mirror all of the inputs that you have coming in on the HD-8 so that you have an input set available in Studio One. So you can see, I don't have them all set up here, but you guys can see that I have many of the inputs already that I usually configure and use with dual use. And then I have some of the other stuff that's actually hardwired into the Digimax D8s. I still have to expand on this a little bit because I've added some things that you saw in the interface for the HD-8, but the important thing is that if you ever want to record from a set of outputs that you have plugged into all your inputs, you have to set up a track, a corresponding track in Studio One, so you can simply assign it and arm it, and you're all set. All right, let's go back to the Quantum. All right, so some of the awesome things about the way the HD-8 works with the latest universal control. It is quite awesome. So if you want any of your outputs, let's start with the DAW outputs. Let's say you want different headphone setup, and you have different headphone amps hooked up to your HD-8 outputs so that you can use the Q mixes in Studio One. This is really cool here because 1 and 2 automatically come out the main outs. 3 and 4, as you can see here, I've got 3 and 4 going to this set of outputs here on the back. And so my Studio One outputs are going to come out here and out of the main outs, and I also have it going to 3 and 4. If I had another headphone amp actually hooked up, I could have it go out here. If I had another headphone amp hooked up, I could go out of here. Let's say I just want to, let's say I'm bouncing some tracks strictly to a reel-to-reel, which is what I do very often. I have those hooked up to 7, 8. To 9 and 10, and they go directly. So whatever I do here is reflected in these outputs that I have assigned to other pieces of hardware. So this is something that was never available in any of the other universal control setups for any of their interfaces. Now, you might see here, loop back. This is really, really important. Because if I want OBS or Zoom or Skype to also hear what I'm doing, I have to make sure that the loop back left and right is turned up here and then selected in those pieces of software. The other thing that you might also be able to do too, you can actually do that with the direct outs to go to the loop back, but I don't want that to happen. I just want that to go out the main outs. So you have the ability to assign any of these things to the loopback. So if I wanted you guys to hear what's coming out of my sound canvas, all I would have to do is go to loopback 1 and turn these up, and then you guys will be able to hear it just the way I do. These are invaluable. Now, my 2 ADAT units don't have outputs, so these are kind of useless to me. Just like that. So it's really only the outputs that are available in either the HD-8 or one of the smaller units. Of course, if you have the HD-2, you've only got 2 outputs, so some of this doesn't apply. But you guys should still see the loopback for either Studio One or whatever else you have plugged into the HD-8 or your HD-2. I think there's an HD-4. Correct me if I'm wrong. So the routing, overall, the routing on this thing is just incredible. It is just so easy because everything has its own volume slider, and you can select it all within the list up at the top. Very cool. You have the ability to go in and actually make some custom setups, whether you want to colorize the whole channel or maybe just the bottom. You have the LED brightness if you want to adjust that. You have the dim amount if you're going to use the dimmer switch on your HD model. If you are going to use the loopback, you have to make sure that your digital and loopback are all on the eyeball. If I turn this off, it'll disconnect everything. I don't want to do it, but you'll see a little line through it indicating it's off. All right, so you got colorize, you got peak hold, and then you've got the meter decay, and I usually just keep it on medium. So after this is all set up, you don't have to touch it. You can choose what outputs the main encoder on the unit will affect. Just like that, and you have your headphone 1 source and headphone 2 source. So I've got headphone 1 actually listening to the main out, and I got headphone 2 out on the unit, actually listening to outputs 3 and 4. So that makes it really simple. All right, let's go back. Okay, so now in Studio One, you have the ability to control the HD-8 right from Studio One. And you can see some of the controls here. I can choose speaker output A, B, or off. I can also control the monitor. I can control the headphones. I can control all of this from Studio One that relates to the HD-8. So you might be asking, so how does that work? Well, what you have to do is you have to go here and you have to show, let's see, audio device controls. So if I uncheck this, you see all of that disappears. Just like that. So now I can also control the gain inputs on the interface. Simply by once I actually assign a set of inputs to a track, I can control the input gains here. Now, this is separate from the input gains that are available in each of the channels. And let's see if I can show that real quick, see if I remember how to do that. I don't usually do that. But let me see here. Let me go to the wrench. Let's see. Auto expand. There we go. No, that's channel notes. So input controls. There we go. All right. So the input controls are here. I can flip the phase and I can control. This is for Studio One. If you look at this, if I go to the wrench and I turn off the audio interface controls, those top ones go away. So the way to know these are the inputs for the interface, these are the extra input controls from Studio One directly. So you have a lot of control over a lot of this. You can turn them up and down. And you can flip the phase on anything that you want to. Just like that. See if I can get these things back to 0. There we go. So just like that. And you're only going to see these on inputs that you are selecting in the track itself. Let me bring this back down. So since I've only got 2 audio inputs here, it's just going to be on these 2. Just like that. Everything else is MIDI in this song. So there you go. All right. So there are the controls for the actual interface, which, like I said, you can turn on and off by selecting audio input device controls. You can keep it simple and keep them off. That way you're only controlling Studio One here. But it's cool to have that option. Just like that. All right, so let's take a break here. Let's go to the chat and see what you guys got going on. Let's see. Be the Crown says, hello, everyone. Bob saying hi to Sheila. All right, so just Bob says, in the HD2 is nice. I can set the thresholds or the ceiling of the inputs with the guitar. It measures the input signal. And sets it up automatically. Nice. Yeah, the auto input gain control is really nice. Meaning that I can play the guitar hard or strike the chords or strings heavily, and it strikes a balance without clipping. Beautiful. Let's see. Just Bob's is great. Sounds great. He's referring to the song, I assume. We got 15 people in here. Good to see everybody. I hope you guys had a good holiday. Happy Thanksgiving, I should say. Let's see. Just Bob says, would love to mix that song. I might make the tracks available. Let's see. Sheila says, looks similar to my setup. Excellent. Hurricane says, looks very organized and easy. Let's see, I've got to wake early, so bye for now. I will catch the replay later. Okay, Hurricane, we'll see ya. And Just Bob says, this is some really good in-depth tutorial. Very cool. I'm glad you like it. Dwayne just popped in. He says, my Studio Live 32R has very similar controls. In addition to the rack, has, the DSP and the fat channel. See, that's the great thing about those mixers, too. It goes another step. It goes to another step even further than the Quantums, to where you can really control, like the 32R, like Dwayne has. Some of that stuff is just amazing. And the improvements that PreSonus has made to universal control, I think there was an issue with the last release, so I had to go back. But overall, the changes and the stability has been amazing. All right, so let's see. What else do we got here? All right, let's go back. Let's go back to... There we go. Yes, it looks like a rainbow. So, like I said, this is the interface for the HD-8 through Universal Control, and this is Studio One, obviously, for those that might not be familiar. All right, so other things to be aware of would be the way to assign to the output headphones. You can select whatever you want to hear out of the main headphones. Like I said, 1 and 2 will go out of those. You have full adjustments for the different headphone outputs on the face of the unit. If you've got 2 sets of speakers and you have them assigned, I don't have them assigned, but you can change them through here as well. You can also change them through Studio One as well. Right, okay, you've got a fader flip option if you want to use it. That's going to be using, I believe that's going to be using the pans or whatnot. I think, let's see, is that going to be for the pans? No, that's not for the pans. You know what? I'm not sure I know what the fader flip is. What is the fader flip? So, let's see, fader flip. Wonder what that is. Oh, is it just for the outputs? Oh, it's for the outputs. All right, that makes sense. All right, so to control the outputs that you actually have assigned, the fader flip will give you the ability to use the faders to control your controls up here. That's kind of cool. Otherwise, if you turn that off, it goes back to the volume control inputs going into your interface. And these are the mono and stereo buttons. I'm not going to click on them because I have my setup so nice. So these are the stereo buttons for you to be able to actually link 2 channels, and they are linked odd even. So 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, and so on. So if you were to, let's see, we can actually do that temporarily over here. I've got my SPDIF inputs. So right now, these are linked. If I wanted to, I could use them as independent inputs in the SPDIF left and right channels, and be able to pan them anyway. So it's really like having 2 more mono channels. But usually the SPDIFs are done in pairs, and it automatically pans them. And like all of the other channels, you can choose what sends will go to them. It's very cool. I don't think there is an output send for the SPDIFs. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Not sure. 100% sure. I only use the SPDIFs for inputs. All right, let's see. Whatever else. There you go. You can actually click on the box to color your channels. And as we go towards the edge, we have 2 more USB inputs. I haven't quite figured out what these are for yet. And as soon as I do, or if somebody smarter than I is in the chat and knows what these are for, I will be happy to do a demonstration on them. All right, let's see here. Let's see. This is some good info. Dwayne, that's his 32R. Be the Crown posted something and then delete. Oh, there it is. Let's see. Be the Crown says, question. Do you use any outboard gear such as preamps, EQs, or compression? I do not. The only outboard gear... The only outboard gear that I use are sound modules. I've got a couple of keyboards with their own sounds, but mostly I have rack mount sound modules. So one of the things that I haven't delved into yet is using the loop. Is using things like Pipeline. But one thing that I did find out from somebody that I was teaching is that if you are going to use Pipeline, you have to bypass the mixer. You have to, otherwise it's not going to work right. We spent hours trying to figure out why we couldn't get Pipeline to work with the inputs and outputs that we had set up. And finally, somebody from PreSonus actually keyed in and said, "Did you bypass the mixer?" And I said, "No." So as soon as we bypass the mixer, what it does is it puts the unit in like a passive mode. And then you can start using all of the functions of Pipeline. So hopefully that's good advice for somebody. I hesitate on even trying it because, as you can see, I have this elaborate setup inside my universal control, so I haven't quite experimented with Pipeline. You can still use the inputs and outputs even if you don't bypass the mixer, but you can't. But they don't work right with Pipeline unless you bypass the mixer. Hopefully, somebody finds that as good information. So hopefully that answers your question, Be the Crown. But you can do it kind of simply. If you're in Studio One and you don't see, I don't use Pipeline. I really don't like Pipeline personally. If I'm going to use an EQ or I'm going to use some sort of distortion pedal or something that I want to reamp, I'll actually go to the channel. Here's the channel. And one of the things that I'll do, if I can actually do this here, is I'll take the output, I'll set up an output, and I'll send that channel to one of the available outputs on the back of my HD-8, and then I'll plug that into my processor, and then what I'll do is I'll bring that back in, the processor outputs, in on a pair of available channels. It's kind of, a lot of people might say that's the hard way. Some people don't like it, especially if they find that they have a little bit of latency. But one of the things that I found out is that if you do it that way and you're getting latency, a simple change to the device block size could fix it. But you have to be careful. The lower you go with this number, the more CPU you're going to use. So kind of be sparing with it when you make that adjustment. So that's just the way that I do it. It keeps me from having to shut off the mixer. I've got one cable that's always plugged into an output, and I use that. When I actually set up, if I go in the song, I would actually do this. Let's go to Preferences. Let's go to Song Setup. So for any particular song, I would go to Outputs. And you can see I have nothing here. So one of the things that I would do is I would add a mono output. And I would say, okay, I'm going to assign that to Output 8. And then I would use Output 8 to actually plug in to my external unit and then go through it like that. Isn't exactly how Pipeline is set up. Well, in order for Pipeline to work, as far as I've been able to tell, with some of the testing that I've done with some of my clients that are using it, in order to make Pipeline work correctly, you have to bypass the mixer. But yes, you are correct. That is the setup that I just described is exactly how it works with external gear. So whether you're using Pipeline or not, but some people like to use Pipeline because you can save presets. I just kind of do it raw without bypassing the mixer. See, the issue is if you don't bypass the mixer, some of the syncing in Pipeline doesn't work right. I don't know if that's something that's been fixed, but you're right. That is exactly how to set it up, whether you're using Pipeline or not. I just choose to not use Pipeline. Hopefully that makes sense. I feel like I'm babbling a bit. So overall, I would have to say that the way that PreSonus did universal control, the way that they have this interface all set up with just these awesome, what I call ridiculously obvious settings, which is something I like for using the Q mixes. All you have to do is assign the outputs and turn up the outputs, and then you don't have to worry about anything. But it was so hard to set up with some of the older versions of universal control. At least I did. I had people that had it set up and showed me, and I'm like, I still don't understand it. But this is pretty easy to do, to set up. The thing about using the Q mixes in Studio One, let me actually close. So the thing about using Q mixes in Studio One is if you only have like 2 outputs, they're useless to you. The Q mixes are really only useful if you have multiple outputs in your interface. So let's say you have a 6 output. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So with that kind of setup, you would actually plug in 3, 4, 5, and 6, 2 separate headphone amps. So once you add, so that those outputs you will be able to assign using the Q mixes in Studio One and have a separate mix for each of the headphone outputs. So you'll have one for you, and then you'll have 2 more for the 2 people that have those headphone amps plugged into 3, 4, 5, and 6. And you assign the Q mixes to 3 and 4, and then you have another set of Q mixes assigned to 5 and 6. You give everybody their own individual headphones, and you can give everybody your own mix. I will be doing a video on that soon. I'm waiting for another HP4 to come in so I can have 2, and I can show you guys how to set them up in Studio One. Very cool. Be the Crown says that's good stuff. He said, and Dwayne actually says, Dwayne was the one that said, isn't that exactly how the pipeline is set up? Yes. He also says, sorry for the typo, you described how you would set up an external. Yes, I did. The only difference that I was making is whether you're using pipeline or not. If you use pipeline, you have to bypass the universal control mixer. If you're just going to do the straight routing through and deal with any latency you might have, then you would just leave the mixer as it is. Dwayne says, my 32R Q mixing is not necessary, cause delay. Yeah. That's the only thing about the Studio Live mixers, that one of the reasons I stopped using mine is because the output structure in that, it's not great. It's really not great. If you're using it live, it's perfect. If you're trying to use it with Studio One, there is a delay. Hey, Radio Tuck Frumpet. He says, hola. Good to see you. Oh, and Sheila says, can't wait for that headphone mix video. Yeah, as soon as I get that headphone amp, I'll show you how to set it all up in Studio One. It's very cool. The thing that you do have to remember is that if you're going to use the Q mixes in Studio One, they have to be in stereo, so you need 2 outs. A lot of people were hoping that you would be able to use a mono out for the Q mixes. If there is a way to do it, I haven't figured it out yet. But from what I can see, the only way that you can set up the Q mixes is using stereo. Here, I'll show you. So let's create a new song. All right. So if I actually go to the routing, these are my inputs. Here are my outputs. So if I'm going to add a mono out, I cannot check the Q mix box. So let me take this and remove it. If I set up a stereo out, I can click the Q mix. Just like that. So if I have, so I'm going to call this Maybe I will do a little bit of demo now. So let's say I have one headphone amp plugged in to 3 and 4 output. I've set up a Q-Mix for that. Let's go ahead and add another stereo pair. This is Q-Mix 2, and I'm going to set that up. So I have these set up for 3, 4, 5, and 6. Gonna apply. Okay, so now when I create audio tracks, they can be mono or stereo, doesn't matter. I'm gonna set up 3. So now the cool thing is if I use the extended mixer, you can see down here, I now have Q-Mix outputs. Here are the Q-Mixes going to 3 and 4. Here are the Q-Mixes going to 5 and 6. Now, the great thing about this is if I make adjustments to the mixer, the Q-Mixes follow. Let's say the person listening out of headphone 1 or Q-Mix 1 likes my mix. But let's say the guy listening to Q-Mix 2 doesn't. So I have to actually click these little locks so that I can give him an independent mix. So on my outputs, let's see, for me and for Q-Mix 1, I want the drums up high, the bass kind of low, and the guitar kind of off. But let's say the guy mixing out of Head Mix 2, he wants the drums low and the bass high and the guitar loud. See how that works? But this is why it's important to be able to assign the Q-Mixes out of different outputs. So if you have 8 outputs, you can hook up a separate headphone amp to each of the pairs, and then you can have more separate mixes. Now, the thing is, you cannot plug a pair of headphones directly into the outputs in the back. You have to have either separate small headphone amps, or you need to have something like the HP6, which has independent headphone inputs, and you would just route them from your interface into the HP6. I have an HP6. So, does that make sense? Did I lose anybody? So remember, the actual head Q-Mixes in Studio One are dependent on how many outputs your interface has, so that you can assign each one to their own headphone amp. And Sheila says yes. All right, let's see. Be the Crown says, how are you setting it up? I can't seem to get mine to MIDI up for some reason. I'm not quite sure what you mean. When you say MIDI up, I'm pretty sure this works with, if I have a presence track. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, you've got Q-Mixes for MIDI as well. Be the Crown, let me know if I understood the question. Oh. All right, we'll go through the Q-Mix setup again, because it looks like I wasn't in the classroom. Let us remove. Oh, that's right. I got to do that from up here. There we go. Sheila says my MPC is not connected to MIDI. Oh, okay. You guys are having a different conversation. Sorry about that. All right. So one more time. Let's go through this one more time. in order to set up Q mixes and be able to use them independently with different headphone amps, the first thing you have to make sure of is that you have an interface with more than 2 outputs. So if we go to the song setup, you can see here, I've set up a Q mix. Let me actually remove both of these and set them up from scratch. Oh, that's okay, Sheila. No, you guys can have a conversation. It's all good. I just got lost. Or more lost. All right, really quick. So if you want to set up different headphone mixes for people in your band, make sure that you have at least 4, 6, or 8 outputs. Each set of outputs in your interface need to go to their own amp or their own input on a multi-headphone amp unit. So the first thing you want to do is you want to add stereo. Let's add 2 stereos. We're going to call this Q Mix 1. Q Mix 2. So, since I have an imaginary interface, it's got 6 outputs. So it's got the 2 mains. That's taken care of. But then we have outputs 3 and 4, which we're going to connect to the first headphone amp. Let's say just an HP4. And then we have another headphone amp going to Q Mix 2, also an HP4. Once that is set up, hit apply and OK. And let's go ahead and create a couple of tracks. Let's go ahead and create 3 tracks. And we want to make sure that we're on the tall version of the mixer. So once we lift this up, we should have Q mixes. Oh, what did I forget? I forgot to do something. I forgot to click the Q mix boxes. Otherwise, the Q mixes are not going to show up in the tracks. So create your stereo outputs, assign them to a particular headphone amp, and click the Q mix box. Let's try it again. There we go. Now we've got our Q mixes. All right. So, one of the things that you can do, let's open this up a little bit more, is you can have the actual faders control the headphone mixes. So, if you look at what I'm doing, when I raise and lower the fader, it also raises and lowers the headphone amps, the Q mixes I have hooked up. But, let's say we've got drums, bass, guitar, and vocals. If the first guy likes the mix, you can leave it. If the second guy wants something different, you can just click the line or uncheck the little lock. Let me see if I can zoom in here. There we go. So you can either click the little lock or just move the fader. Okay, so now the second guy can have very low drums, a loud bass, a very low guitar, and a loud vocal. Let's say it's the vocalist. So he wants the music kind of low as to where me and the other guy, we want it a kind of loud. So since these Q mixes are connected to an individual headphone amp, each of the 2 guys can control their own volumes. I can have my main mix going out the mains, no problem. I'm sharing it with the first guy, but the second guy wants his own mix in his headphones. This is why it's important. To understand that the only way the Q mixes are going to work is if you have an interface with multiple outputs, more than 2. Even if you just got 4 outputs, you can have 2 separate headphone mixes, one for you and one for the guy you're working with. All right, what do you guys think? Sorry I had to do that example twice. I wasn't sharing my screen the first time. So, Sheila, I don't know if you found that helpful at all. So let me know. Because basically you just saw the whole setup for the Q mixes. All right. So that takes care of that. Okay, Sheila says that's great. So there is no other workaround if you've only got 2 outputs. That's it. That's all you got. You're welcome. You're very welcome, Sheila. But that. Unfortunately, it's all you got. So if you've got a 4 output interface, that's good. That works good. You got 2 going to your speakers. You have the headphones coming out of that speaker setup. And then you have 2 more outputs for somebody else who might want a different mix. Dwayne says, does your Q mix have any latency? So far I haven't had any issues. My HP6, the signal is right on time. Right on time. If you go above 256 in your device block size, it might get a little bit delayed, but it is a hardware mix. So I've been as high as 512 and haven't noticed any headphone latency. So that you can go here, go to preferences, and you can use this. But I've gone as high as 512 and I've noticed no latency at all with the Q mixes so far. So it's cool. Very good. Oh my gosh, is it really almost 8 o'clock already? Jeez. This is crazy. We've been doing this an hour already. I'm glad a couple of you came in. It's actually been a decent live stream. I've had a lot of good examples, a lot of good questions. But I do highly recommend the Quantum interface series. I was lucky with my HD-8 because it was gifted to me. Originally, they were going to let me borrow it, and I can't say who they is. It wasn't PreSonus, but they ended up letting me keep it. Sheila says 3 minutes left. Well, if you guys got questions, I'll hang around. But that should be some pretty, I think some pretty decent info for those of you that are looking to maybe get even if it's not a PreSonus interface, all of this will still work. It's better with the PreSonus interfaces because I think the way that it links is easier. But, because if you get a third-party interface, in most cases, you're not going to be able to control the interface from Studio One. There are a couple of third-party interfaces I've been kind of surprised for people that I've taught. And I said, they've pulled up their Studio One screen, and I'm like, hey, you've got interface controls. I thought you didn't have a PreSonus interface. And they've said, no, I can't remember what they said that they had. Maybe it'll come to me eventually. But they got controls. But any interface, even if you've got something like from Behringer, if it's got multiple outputs, everything that I've shown you will work. I can't speak to the latency on those interfaces, but, for the most part, it should work. Sheila says I need to update my headphone amp. Well, I'll tell you what, Sheila, you have a couple of good choices out there. Let me go back to the classroom. Let me show you. If you're looking, watch this. Let's see. Let's go to Amazon. This is the one. This one is great. For $129, I mean, if you can get the PreSonus one, I definitely would advise that. I don't know if they're made anymore, though. But the Behringer headphone amp, this thing is great because it has separate inputs for all of the headphones. So if we go to the back, there we go. You can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can have 8 Q mixes. So it is really, really nice. If you just use the front of the headphone amp, you can just plug in once into the input, and then it goes through all of them. But if you've got 8 or 16 outputs out of your interface, maybe with an ADAT unit hooked up, you can have a ton of headphone amps. All right, let me do this. Actually, if you want, I can actually get, if you use this link and you buy one, I'll actually get a little commission. Let me put this in the chat. There you go. If you're in the States and you use that link, then I'll get a couple bucks because I am, okay, I said a couple butts. Couple bucks, not butts. Because I am an Amazon affiliate, and I'll make sure to put that in the description below. Oh, and if you find it cheaper somewhere else, definitely get it cheaper. But I'm just going to say, if you do end up ordering from Amazon, use that link, and then I'll get a couple of cents commission. I think it's like 40 cents, something like that. All right, just Bob says, gotta run, dinner time. All right, thanks. Cool. I appreciate it, Bob. Thanks for coming in. Very cool. Excellent. There you go. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me. It is 8:02. I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Hopefully you guys got something out of the live stream. Hopefully it was helpful. Hopefully you learned a couple things. And I'll see you guys next week. It'll either be Thursday or Friday. I'll post an announcement as soon as I possibly can. These are usually on Fridays, but they're either at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock is what I meant to say, not Thursday or Friday. They're either going to be at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, but they will always be on Fridays. If I have to skip a week, I'll let you guys know. And I will see you guys later on. So take care. Have a good rest of your holidays, and I'll see you in a week. I'll be releasing. I have a whole bunch of videos coming out this week. So I'll see you in the videos, or I'll just see you in the next live stream. Take care.